The quiet before the storm. The sun was rising over the green hills of New Terra, a peaceful human colony on the edge of known space. The sky was painted orange and gold, and the air was cool and fresh. Children laughed and ran through the fields. Near the school, chasing small flying creatures that looked like glowing butterflies. It was a special day, a school outing to the forest just outside the colony's border. 10 children, all between the ages of 7 and 10, walked in a line. With 2 teachers. The forest was quiet, filled with tall trees and soft blue leaves. Birds sang from the branches. Everything felt safe, peaceful. Captain Reed, the head of the colony's security, stood on the watchtower, looking through his binoculars. He smiled as he saw the children disappear into the forest path. It had been 5 years since the humans settled on New Terra, and not once had they seen any serious danger. The colony had farms, homes, labs, and even a small spaceport. Everyone worked hard and lived well. But that morning, something felt off. Reed couldn't explain it, but a strange feeling sat in his chest like a heavy stone. Hours passed. The children were supposed to return by noon. But the sun reached its highest point, and still, there was no sign of the school group. Reed tried to stay calm. He contacted the teachers through the comlink. No reply. Then he sent a drone into the forest. The drone flew for 5 minutes before the signal went dark. Now he knew something was wrong. He called for a search team. 10 trained security officers put on their light armor and headed into the forest with tracking devices. Reed followed behind them, leading the way. The forest path looked undisturbed at first. Then they found something, a shoe lying on the side of the trail. Small, blue, with a cartoon star on the side. It belonged to Liam, one of the children. Nearby, they saw broken branches, odd burns on the trees, and a strange circular pattern on the ground. A backpack was lying near the circle, torn open, books scattered. "Captain," one of the officers said, pointing to the ground. There were prints in the soil, large, 3-toed footprints, unlike anything human. They circled the area, then disappeared into thin air. Reed's face turned hard. "They were taken," he said. "But by who?" Someone asked. No one had an answer. The team returned to the colony. The mood had changed. Parents were crying. Friends stood frozen, staring at the forest with fear in their eyes. Reed called a meeting of the colony's council. They sat in a quiet room, looking at the evidence. "Could it be the Tyrants?" one council member asked. "We've had no contact with them in years," Reed nodded slowly. "It matches some of their patterns. The burn marks, the missing signals, the footprints. They used to take test subjects like this long ago, but they promised to stop." "They lied," someone whispered. Reed stood up. His voice was calm but cold. "This was not an accident. This was a planned operation. They took our children, and we are going to get them back." The colony sent a message to Earth Command, explaining the situation. Meanwhile, Reed ordered scans of the nearby sectors. 2 scout ships were sent out to search for any sign of alien ships or hidden bases. That night, the colony didn't sleep. Families stayed awake, candles lit in windows, hoping for good news. Reed sat in his office, staring at the photo on his desk, himself with his wife and daughter, taken before she passed away. "I will not lose more children," he said to himself. Next day, a ship arrived in orbit. It was sleek and silver, shaped like a long blade. A message came through the communication tower. "This is Ambassador Vec of the Theran Unity. We request peaceful contact with your leadership." Reed's eyes narrowed. "Interesting timing," he said. The Therans were known for their cold logic and strange science. They didn't value emotions the way humans did. Their government had a history of using living beings in experiments. Though they always denied it, Reed allowed the ambassador to land. The meeting was held in the colony's council chamber. Ambassador Vec looked calm and emotionless. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes glowed faintly. "We are aware of your missing children," he said. "But I assure you, the Theran Unity had no part in this. We come only to offer assistance." Reed stared at him. "Your ship arrived too soon after the incident. Either you knew what happened, or you planned it." Vec didn't blink. "Captain Reed, making wild accusations helps." "No one." Reed leaned forward. "If you're hiding something, we'll find it. You don't take our children and walk away." Vec stood. "Then we have nothing more to say today." After the alien ship left, Reed received a secret transmission from one of the scout teams. They had picked up a faint signal Theran military code. It was coming from the other side of the planet. Hidden under a mountain dot, it matched the energy pattern found near the abduction site. Reed sent the data to Earth Command. They replied with 2 words: "Stand by." Something bigger was coming, and this time, the humans were not going to be quiet. First, contact turns cold. The next morning, a storm of quiet activity spread across New Terra. Captain Reed stood on the command platform, eyes fixed on the large screen in front of him. The signal from the hidden mountain base still flickered, weak but steady. The energy matched Theran tech, smooth, cold, and unnatural. Earth Command had responded. A stealth ship was already on the way from the nearest fleet base. Reinforcements would take time to arrive, but Reed didn't want to wait. Not when children were still missing. In the colony square, people gathered in silence. Mothers held pictures of their missing sons and daughters. Fathers stood with clenched jaws and restless eyes. There were no loud cries anymore, only the deep, heavy silence of pain. Reed walked through the crowd, nodding to familiar faces. He felt their pain like it was his own. He didn't speak much. Words meant little now. Actions would matter more. That afternoon, the Theran ambassador Vec returned, this time with 2 guards beside him. His face was as calm as ever, but his eyes held a new sharpness. Reed met him in the council chamber again, this time with armed officers standing around the room. "We've reviewed your request for peace," Reed said slowly. "But now we have evidence." Vec tilted his head slightly. "Evidence of what, Captain?" "Our scouts found a hidden energy source on the far side of the planet. Same signature as Theran research stations. Same type of shield. Same code used in your transmission systems." Vec's voice stayed flat. "That does not prove anything. You humans are quick to accuse." Reed leaned forward. 10 children are missing. You arrive less than a day later, pretending to help. Now we find one of your secret stations under a mountain. Do you think we're blind?" The Theran didn't reply. He only stared. Reed continued. "You're using children for your experiments again, aren't you? Studying our bodies, our minds. You never stopped." Vec finally blinked. "Even if that were true, retaliation would be unwise. Your kind is emotional. You act before thinking. That is your weakness." Reed smiled, but it wasn't warm. "No. That's our strength. You stole our children. That was your mistake." The ambassador turned and left without another word. Hours later, in the war room, Reed spoke to his officers. "We are not waiting anymore," he said. "The stealth ship from Earth will arrive in 20 hours, but we start moving now." The plan was simple. A small team would sneak into the mountain base, confirm the location of the children, and send coordinates for a full extraction. Reed chose his best fighters: Lewis, a quiet sniper; Dana, a tech expert; and Mason, a close combat specialist. They packed light, wore black armor, and carried silenced weapons. At midnight, under cover of darkness, they left the colony in a silent transport. The journey to the mountain base took 4 hours. The ship stayed low, avoiding sensors. The mountains were covered in sharp rocks and glowing moss, with cold winds howling through the cracks. When they reached the base, they saw a metal door hidden behind vines and stone. Faint lights blinked under the surface. Reed tapped his communicator. We're here. Signal is strong. Preparing to enter. Dana hacked the lock quickly. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow tunnel with glowing walls. They moved. Silently inside, step by step, guns ready. After 20 minutes, they found it. A glass room stood at the center of the base. Inside, behind energy barriers, were the children. All 10 of them. They were asleep or unconscious, lying on soft white beds. Machines beeped quietly, scanning their bodies. Reed's hands tightened into fists. Mason whispered, "They're alive." Dana began to work fast. "I can shut down the shields. But once I do, they'll know we're here." "Do it," Reed said. The barriers dropped with a flash. The children began to stir. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Red lights flashed across the hallway. The quiet hum of the base turned into a loud siren. "Get them out," Reed shouted. Mason and Lewis picked up the children, carrying 2 each. Reed lifted a small girl with brown hair and sleepy eyes. "You're safe now," he whispered. Dana sent the coordinates to Earth Fleet Command. Extraction. Team locked in, 10 minutes. But the Theran guards were already coming. Blaster fire echoed through the base. Reed's team took cover, returning fire with silent precision. The Therans wore white armor and moved like machines, but they weren't ready for close combat. Mason tackled one, slamming him into a wall. Dana dropped another with a short burst from her pulse rifle. They reached the exit just as the sky lit. Up, Earth's stealth ship arrived, breaking the clouds with a silent roar. Ropes dropped down from above. The team strapped the children into harnesses one by one. Reed was the last to leave, holding the little girl close. The Therans fired from below, but the ship vanished into the sky before they could hit it. Back. At the colony, joy exploded through the streets. Parents cried as they hugged their children. Friends ran to meet them, shouting names, holding hands, wiping away tears. Captain Reed watched from a distance, his face calm but eyes full. But he knew. This was just the beginning. The Therans had been exposed. Their lies, their experiments, their cold cruelty, it was all out in the open now. They had crossed a line, and humanity would never let it happen again. The retaliation begins. The sky above New Terra was no longer peaceful. Warships hung in orbit, black, silent and ready. They belonged to Earth's 7th Fleet, the same force that had once stopped the galactic invasion. Now they had returned, not for diplomacy, not for discussion, but for justice. Captain Reed stood on the command platform, watching the live feed from orbit. Massive carriers, destroyers, and stealth crafts hovered like steel monsters, blocking every known path in or out of the system. "We gave them a chance," Reed said. "They lied. They experimented on our children. Now we answer." Behind him, officers and soldiers moved quickly. Plans were in motion. Earth Command had approved. Operation Firelight, full-scale retaliation against the Theran Unity. No more warnings. No more talking. At the same time, deep in Theran space, chaos began to spread. On one of their main colonies, lights flickered in every building. Screens went black. Defense systems failed. Air traffic crashed. The whole city froze. A virus had entered their network. It came without sound, without trace, spreading through every system. It had no name, but it had one purpose: cripple everything. The humans had sent it. In a dark room, Theran leaders gathered in panic. Their communication lines were dead. Their data was lost. Their factories had stopped. One of them shouted, "How did they get through our shields?" Another replied, voice shaking, "Humans, they know our code. They've been watching us longer than we knew." Across the galaxy, more Theran colonies faced the same fate. Power down. Ships frozen. Panic everywhere. Back on New Terra, Reed's team was preparing for the next step. They had rescued the children. Now they had to make sure the Therans never tried it again. Reed gathered his special unit in the war room. "We are not invaders," he said. "We are protectors. But the moment they took our children, they turned this into war, and we are going to end it." Mason grinned, loading his gear. "Let's make them regret it." Dana checked her equipment. "I've written a gift for their main research hub. Once we're in, it'll melt their data from the inside." Lewis stayed silent, nodding. He had already chosen his targets. They boarded the stealth ship at midnight. The stars above were calm, but everyone on board knew. The storm had begun. The mission was clear: hit the Theron research base where the experiments were planned. It wasn't on New Terra, but a nearby moon, hidden under the surface dot. As the human ship approached the moon, it remained invisible, cloaked, silent dot inside the Theron base. Scientists worked quietly. They still believed no one knew about their experiments. They didn't know humans were already inside. Reed's team moved through tunnels like shadows. One by one, they disabled guards. No alarms. No noise. They reached the central lab where alien scientists stood around glowing tanks. Inside one tank, a digital model of a human child was spinning, being analyzed cell by cell. Dana placed her device on the main console. It began to download. Everything proof of the crimes. One, Theron turned, eyes widening. "Intruders." Before he could finish, Mason stunned him. The others tried to run but were quickly stopped. Lewis pointed at the tanks. "We destroy this?" Reed nodded. "Everything." They planted charges, set timers, and left a single message behind on the wall, glowing in red letters. "You touched our children. Now we touch your future." Minutes later, from space, a fireball exploded on the moon's surface. The Theron research base was gone. Forever. The message had been sent. Across the galaxy, Theron leaders began to panic. Their ships were being jammed. Their factories weren't working. Their colonies were dark. Their bases were under attack. One of the Theron generals stood in front of the High Council, his voice trembling. "We thought they would be emotional, weak, but we were wrong." Another general said, "They don't just fight with weapons. They fight with fire, mind, and message. They took our power, our safety, our pride." The High Leader finally stood. He looked older than before. "They are humans," he said. "We took their young, we broke a sacred bond, and now they are showing us what that means." Back on New Terra, Reed returned to the colony. The children were recovering well, surrounded by family and counselors. Some still had nightmares, but they were healing. Reed visited them often, sitting beside them, telling stories of Earth and stars. They smiled when he entered the room. Some called him the brave captain. Others just called him Uncle Reed. He didn't need medals. This was enough, but he knew the fight was not over yet. Earth Command sent him a new message. Final phase authorization granted. Now it was time for the galaxy to understand. Humanity protects its own, and anyone who dared to hurt their children would pay a price written in fire. Collapse of the Theron power. The stars above the Theron homeworld no longer brought peace. Human warships moved across the system like shadows, silent, precise, deadly. Every major Theron defense station was either destroyed or frozen by Earth cyber attacks. The once proud Theron unity, cold, powerful, and feared, was now broken and afraid. Inside the main Theron capital, alarms echoed. Leaders moved through dark hallways, speaking in low voices, unsure what to do. Screens showed footage from across their colonies, ships crashing, factories offline, riots in the streets. One commander shouted, "How can they do this? We were the superior race." Another replied, "We underestimated them. We thought they were weak because they care. But their love made them stronger." Back on New Terra, Captain Reed received the latest report. The Theron Empire was falling apart. 3 more colonies had surrendered. Human fleets now controlled most of their trade routes. Still, Reed didn't smile. Not yet. He looked at the screen showing the 10 rescued children. They were safe, but the scars inside them would take time to heal. Some woke up screaming. Others stayed silent, afraid of dark rooms and strange voices. Reed's voice was firm as he spoke to his team. We are not done. The ones who gave the order to take our children are still free. They must face justice. His unit Mason, Dana, and Lewis Dash nodded. Double quotes. Then let's finish what we started, said Dana. Loading her gear. Earth Command launched the final stage of the operation. They sent a message across all frequencies, loud and clear. We do not want war, but we will not allow cruelty. You took our children. Now your power ends. It wasn't just a message for the tyrants. It was for every species watching. For every government thinking humans were soft, emotional, and easy to push. Now they saw the truth. In the Theran capital, panic spread. Citizens began to protest. They had been told that humans were wild and dangerous, but now many saw that it was their own leaders who were the monsters. Families shouted in the streets, "Why did you bring this war to us? You lied. You said humans were weak. You used children like objects. Now look what you've done." Some Theran soldiers even dropped their weapons and walked away. Others refused to fight. A crack was forming in the Empire. And humans were widening it with every strike. Captain Reed's ship, the Resolute, was now leading the main attack on the last Theran stronghold, an underground command center built inside a giant asteroid. The asteroid was heavily protected, hidden behind energy fields and space mines. But humans had studied it for years. They knew its weak points. Reed stood on the bridge, giving orders. Target the power relays first. Then the communication towers. Don't waste fire. Be sharp. Be fast. The attack began. Missiles flew through space, glowing like fireballs. Lasers cut through shields like paper. Human drones swarmed the asteroid like angry wasps. Inside the Theran command center, leaders screamed. Systems failed one by one. Screens turned black. Doors refused to open. Lights flashed red. We must surrender. One shouted. No, another screamed. We still have power. We can fight. But it was too late. The ceiling cracked. Human Marines dropped in from above, armored and armed. Captain Reed entered last, walking through smoke and broken walls. His rifle was lowered, but his eyes were cold. He found the highest Theran leader in a room full of blinking machines. You gave the order to take our children, Reed said. The alien's voice shook. We needed data. Human strength. It was unusual. We were afraid of your growth. So you took the weakest among us? Reed asked. You kidnapped our young? And you thought we would stay silent? The Theran looked down. We made a mistake, Reed nodded. Yes, and now the galaxy knows what happens when humans are crossed. That night, the human fleet pulled back. The Theran Empire, once feared, had surrendered. Their weapons were offline. Their leaders were arrested. Their research labs were destroyed. A message was broadcast to every known system. Experimenting on children, any species' children, is a war crime. Humanity will never allow it again. Let this be a warning to all who cross that line. Back on New Terra, people gathered in the colony square. For the first time in weeks, there was music, laughter, light. The children played together again, slowly returning to normal life. Parents hugged them tightly, never wanting to let go. Reed stood at the edge of the crowd watching. He didn't join the celebration. Not yet. His mind still played the memories over and over, the empty forest trail, the broken backpack, the terrified eyes of the children in that lab. Mason walked over and handed him a small cup of juice. You did it, Captain. We all did. Reed gave a quiet smile. We did what we had to. And we'll do it again if needed. Dana joined them, holding a little girl's hand, the same child Reed had carried out of the Theran base. She wanted to say thank you, Dana said. The girl looked up at Reed. You came for us, she whispered. Reed knelt down. Of course. We did, we always will. Far away, in the darkest corners of space, alien empires watched silently. They studied the videos, the battles, the fall of the Theran Unity. And they wrote one note into their books: never harm a human child. Or you will face all of them. A warning etched in history. The stars over New Terra were clear again. For the first time in many weeks, there were no enemy ships, no alerts, no dark clouds of fear. The war was over. The Theran Unity had surrendered. Their leaders were in human custody. Their labs, bases, and secret facilities had all been shut down or destroyed. Humanity had won. But it wasn't just a victory of weapons. It was a victory of love, unity, and will. When the enemy took what was most precious, humanity didn't break. They rose. Captain Reed stood in front of a large crowd in the colony square. The people had gathered to witness something special: the signing of the Galactic Child Protection Pact. It was a new law, created by Earth Command and accepted by most species in the known systems. The law was simple: no child of any species shall ever be taken, tested, or harmed. Those who broke this law would face punishment from the United Forces of Earth. An alien representative from the peaceful Zaran race stepped forward and spoke into the translator device. We have seen the strength of humans, but more than that, we have seen their heart. They do not only fight for their own, they fight for what is right. Reed listened silently. He wasn't looking for praise. His eyes were on the children, standing in the front row with bright eyes and safe hands. Later, at the memorial site near the forest trail, a small monument stood tall. It was made of steel and stone, shaped like a shield. On it, words were carved in many languages. You took our children. You woke our fury. Let no one forget. The rescued children placed flowers near the base. Parents stood behind them, some crying, some smiling, most doing both. Reed placed a hand on the shield, his voice quiet. This place was once where fear began. Now it will be remembered for courage. News of humanity's actions spread across the galaxy. Species that had once doubted humans now watched them with new respect. They had seen how far humans would go to protect the innocent, how fast they moved when pushed, how fiercely they struck when hurt. Even distant empires, ones that had never interacted with Earth, began to rethink their plans. No one wanted to make the same mistake the Therans made. On one desert world, a group of alien traders told a story to their children. There was a time when one empire thought humans were weak. They took human children. The humans came like thunder. And when they left, only silence remained. The story was told again and again. It became a warning and a legend. In the days that followed, Earth Command sent support teams to the remaining Theran colonies. But this time, they didn't come with weapons. They came with aid, food, medicine, rebuilding tools. Some humans were angry about this. Why help those who hurt us? They asked. Reed answered it clearly in a broadcast to all colonies. We punish the guilty. But we are not here to destroy. We are here to protect. We are human. And that means we rise above hate. The message touched many hearts, even in Theran space. Mason, Dana, and Lewis were all given medals, but they didn't return to Earth. They chose to stay on New Terra, helping train new defenders and watching over the colony. One day, Mason was fixing a small transport when a young boy walked over and handed him a drawing. It showed Mason holding a big shield, standing in front of children while aliens ran away. The boy smiled shyly. That's you. Mason stared at the drawing for a long time. Then he nodded. Thanks, kid, I'll keep it. As for Captain Reed, he returned to his small home on the edge of the colony. He didn't need titles or command posts anymore. He had done his duty. Now he wanted peace. Sometimes he walked to the edge of the forest where it all began. The trail had been cleared. A new path had been built with security towers and safety lights. One evening, the little girl he had saved during the rescue, Ella, ran up beside him. "Captain," she said. He turned, smiling. "Yes? Are the bad aliens gone forever?" Reed paused for a moment, then knelt beside her. "Maybe not forever. But if they ever come back, we'll be ready. Will you fight again?" He looked at the stars, then back at her. "If I have to, yes. But I hope I never do. I hope no one ever has to." Ella nodded and took his hand. Together, they walked down the quiet path, the sky glowing above them. And so the story came to an end, a story of pain, of courage, of fire, and of love. A story that began with fear and ended with strength. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Do not take what humans love, or they will show you what it means to be human. The end.